Hello and welcome to TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. U.S. President Donald Trump abruptly stepped back from threats to impose tariffs as leverage to seize Greenland after meeting NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He also ruled out the use of force. Nazvi Karim with more.
The northern lights illuminate the night sky above Greenland's capital, Nuuk. Meanwhile, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, the spotlight was on Donald Trump. The U.S. president appears to have retreated from wanting to use military force to take Greenland and slap tariffs on European countries, pushing back against his plan, following a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. But Trump warned that if the U.S. do not get what it wants, it would not be forgotten.
So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember.
Greenland became the focal point of global geopolitics after Trump shook the NATO alliance by threatening tariffs on Europe to strong-arm his aim of taking over Greenland. European nations took a united stand, insisting the future of the massive island was to be decided by Greenlanders and Denmark. It now appears that a deal is taking shape, as Trump later said.
It's a deal that people jumped at. Really fantastic for the USA. Gets everything we wanted, including especially real national security and international security.
How so? Can you give us some details, please?
Well, the deal is going to be put out pretty soon. I mean, we'll see. It's right now a little bit in progress, but pretty far along. It gets us everything we needed to get.
How long will the deal be, Mr. President?
Infinite. Forever. It's what's called an infinite deal. It's forever.
For Denmark, the core problem remains. Though the threat of military force has eased for now, it is clear that Trump still wants the U.S. to own Greenland. Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen said it is positive that the U.S. says it will not use military force. But that will not make the problem go away, he said, because they expressed very clearly that it is better to own than to rent, and that Denmark cannot look after Greenland, so there is still a challenge. Back in Washington, lawmakers spoke largely on party lines.
I think that what we heard this morning from President Trump's speech in Davos is that while he has supposedly ruled out military action, which is good, I don't trust him because he's already flip-flopped on that a couple of times.
So I think just having a conversation with them, Denmark, you know, you're going to get a fair deal here, but we're going to protect Greenland, we're going to protect Europe like we have been, and I just think it's our national interest to acquire Greenland through negotiation.
Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
During his speech in Davos, Switzerland, Donald Trump took a dig at Canada and its Prime Minister Mark Carney. Nazvi Karim has details.
Some commentators believe Mark Carney's rallying speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, will one day be taught in history classes. The Canadian Prime Minister, sometimes quoting philosophers and leaders of the past, stirred the audience in Davos, where he said middle powers for too long bent to the will of superpowers from a position of weakness.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Argue the middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. But when we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness. This is not sovereignty. It's the performance of sovereignty while accepting subordination.
Trump, though, was not impressed. He talked about Canada while mentioning the potential deal with NATO over Greenland's future security, advising Carney to remember how much the U.S. has done for Canada.
We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Nazri Karim, TVB News.
President Donald Trump promoted his Board of Peace as the greatest board ever assembled before departing the World Economic Forum in Davos. The board will oversee the development of post-war Gaza.
Because we want everybody, we want all nations, where people have control, people have power, where we're never going to have a problem. This is the greatest board ever assembled, and everybody wants to be on it. But yeah, I have some controversial people on it, but these are people that get the job done. These are people that have tremendous influence. And I put all babies on the board, it wouldn't be very much. I think the Board of Peace will be the most prestigious board ever, and it's going to get a lot of work done that the United Nations should have done.
Also on the board are former British Prime Minister Tony Blair and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Back locally, the coroner's court has concluded the delivery of its verdict on the 2012 Lama ferry crash, which left 39 dead. Samantha Lee has the details.
Family members of the victims gathered at the West Kowloon Magistrates Court for the second day of the ruling. The tragedy unfolded on October 1st, 2012. What was meant to be a celebratory fireworks cruise for the Hong Kong Electric employees and their families turned into a disaster when the Lama 4 vessel collided with the Lama-bound Sea Smooth, operated by Hong Kong and Kowloon Ferry. The Lama 4 vessel capsized and sank, claiming 39 lives. On the family's concerns that technicians failed to fix the vessel's structural flaws during an annual inspection, Coroner Monica Chow clarified the scope of the Marine Department's duties. She pointed out that while initial inspections can verify whether a ship's structure matches its approved design, the annual inspection is intended to assess only the vessel's condition. Chow said it was impracticable and unrealistic to expect inspectors to re-evaluate the ship's design during every routine check. As for who is to blame for the faulty stability calculations, Chow found that the draft person was negligent, and he had assumed his superiors or the Marine Department would catch any errors. She concluded it was Chorley Yard's failure to clearly define the roles of employees at different ranks, resulting in passing the buck between parties. Addressing the controversy over whether steel plates were added to the bow of the vessel Sea Smooth, Chow believes these plates had no significant impact on the collision. She also ruled it out as a factor in the rapid sinking of the Lama 4, as she weighed on expert testimony. In terms of the safety standards, Chow noted that the outer coamings, which are designed to prevent seawater from entering the cabin, complied with the official height standard. Therefore, she said the height of the inner coamings was found to have no causal link to the vessel's sinking. On whether crew members on the ship were overworked, Chow remarked that the maritime industry faces manpower shortages, just like many other sectors. She noted the labor issue is not something the court can address independently. In Chow's closing statement, she expressed the court's empathy for families of the victims, acknowledging the devastating trauma they have endured. In response to the verdict, a family member of one of the victims, Ms. Leung, had this to say. We are utterly disappointed with the ruling. Expert witnesses pointed out that the vessel would not have sunk so quickly if the watertight door had been equipped. The door was supposed to be there, based on Chorley Yard's initial design. It is preposterous that the ruling did not answer the question in our minds for so many years. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
The national security trial involving the now defunct Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China and 3 of the group's former leaders began today. Former Vice Chairperson Albert Ho pleaded guilty to the charges. Celine Chan reports.
The Alliance's former chairperson Lee Chuk-yan and 2 former vice chairpersons Albert Ho and Chow Hang-tung, who have been detained, were taken to the West Kowloon Magistrates Court by a prison van. The case will be heard by designated national security judges Justice Alex Lee, Johnny Chan and Anna Lai. The 3 activists, along with the Alliance, are accused of inciting subversion of state power during the period between July 1, 2020 and September 8, 2021. Albert Ho pleaded guilty to the charges before the trial began, while the others pleaded not guilty. In the opening statement, the prosecutor said the 5 goals of the alliance includes ending one-party rule in China. The leadership of the Chinese Communist Party is established by the national constitution and is an integral part of the fundamental system. As such, there is no legal means to end the leadership of the CCP. The prosecution side said that, established in 1989, the alliance has over 200 members and different standing committees. It promotes its 5 primary goals through holding different campaigns regularly each year, and such moves are organized. The alliance promotes its belief and advocacy through different activities that highlights the negative side of China, including holding the annual June 4th candlelight vigil throughout the years. Even after the national security law came into effect, the organization continued to support the idea of ending one-party rule through different leaflets and publications aiming to subvert state power. It is a well-organized public organization that held continuous campaigns. As for Albert Ho, who pleaded guilty to his charges, the prosecution said he continued to serve as the alliance's vice chairperson even after the national security law took effect. Ho participated in the alliance's activities and advocated for ending one-party rule through means like chanting slogans. The prosecution said his actions of promoting the alliance's goals with other defendants are illegal and are against the country's constitution. As Albert Ho admitted the case in the court, he has been granted permission by Justice Alex Lee to be absent from the following court sessions. His sentencing would be handled after the entire trial concludes. No witnesses were called on the first day of the trial. The hearing will continue on Friday. Celine Chan, TVB News.
Welcome back. The U.S. House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee on Wednesday voted to pass a bill known as the AI Overwatch Act, which would expand congressional oversight of chip exports to countries, including China, Russia, and Iran. The legislation still needs to clear the full House and Senate before it's officially signed into law. Danny Zhou has more.
42 committee members have voted in favor of advancing the bill. 2 voted against and 1 responded present. The act was introduced by Representative Brian Mast of Florida, the committee chair, last month after U.S. President Donald Trump greenlit NVIDIA's sale of its powerful H200 AI chips to China. Mast suggested the bill is to assure that America's most advanced AI chips won't be used to fuel China's military capabilities. Reports say the latest version of the act also bans NVIDIA's top-end Blackwell chips. The House Foreign Affairs Committee will have 30 days for review and is given more licenses to block the chips' shipments to U.S. adversaries. The act stipulated that any plan to ship AI chips to countries such as China, Russia, and Iran requires formal notification to the Congress. And any processor with computing capacity equivalent to or higher than H20 will be subject to stringent oversight. Meanwhile, the committee passed another act requiring the U.S. Commerce Secretary to submit annual reports to assess China's AI prowess and review whether Washington's export curbs of high-end AI chips are in line with national security demands. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
A Chinese envoy said Japan is totally unqualified to seek a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. Sun Lei, charged affairs of China's permanent mission to the United Nations, was speaking at the first meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiations on Security Council reform under the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Sun stressed Japan is not qualified to seek a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Sun said Japanese right-wing politicians have continued to whitewash the country's history of aggression and push for remilitarization. He asserted this seriously violates the basic norms governing international relations and constitutes an open challenge to the outcomes of World War II. Sun said China, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council and a responsible major country, is ready to work with all peace-loving countries and people to firmly uphold the outcomes of World War II and the post-war international order. Back locally, the police received reports of more than 80 online romance scams over the past 4 weeks, with victims losing over $49 million in total. Among the recent cases, a 70-year-old woman fell in love with a scammer on Facebook who claimed to be the CEO of a listed company. After gaining her trust, the fraudster lured her into a fake gold investment scheme. To fund the investment, the victim made 73 bank transfers, totaling over $5.6 million into a designated account, and handed over $450,000 in cash to an accomplice. She only realized she had been conned after the scammers cut off all contact, by which time she had lost over $6 million. The police urged the public to remain vigilant and stay away from unrealistic investment opportunities. It's been almost 2 months since the deadly fire at Tai Po's Wang Fuk Court. As of Tuesday, 8 of the injured residents remain hospitalized and in stable condition. Some residents earlier completed the identification of their parents' remains, confirming their identity through DNA testing. Celine Chan has more.
The 168 victims that passed away in the blaze include the parents of Ms. Chan and her sister. Growing up with their parents in Wang Fuk Court, the estate played a huge part in their lives, from a family of 4 to 3 generations under the same roof before the sisters moved out. Their parents still took care of their grandchild after the sisters left. Ms. Chan said the hardest part was facing her child's questions. Being raised by his grandparents, her child felt the deepest pain, but all she could tell him was that Grandpa and Grandma went to heaven earlier to watch over him. They live at Wang Cheng House, the very block where fire first ignited. After over 40 hours of relentless burning, her parents' remains were unrecognizable. Their identities could only be confirmed through DNA testing. With only a piece of bone left, Ms. Chan said it was very difficult for her to bear. Their bodies were almost entirely destroyed by the fire, and recovering their identities through DNA testing became the only evidence that they had once existed. While the fire may have burned their home to ashes, it couldn't burn away the memories nor extinguish the grief. She still hopes the authorities can consider rebuilding on the original site, saying that she's willing to wait however long it may take. As for now, the long-term settlement plan for Wang Fuk Court's residents is yet to be finalized. The government-established independent committee will hold a direction conference on February 5th at Central City Gallery. About 400 seats will be available for the public, while observers can reserve places online starting today. Celine Chan, TVB News.
And that is the news. Hope you tune in for the late news later on this evening. Bye for now.